The mother placed a blade in her daughter's hand. It was not a kitchen knife. It was a small paring knife with a bone handle, the kind used to peel fruit, the kind that fits neatly into a young girl's palm. She set it on the table between them. Beside it lay the golden shoe, still wet with her sister's blood. "Your toes," the mother said. Her voice was calm and steady. "Cut them off. When you are queen, you will never need to walk." The girl was 16. She looked at the shoe. She looked at the knife. She looked at her mother's face. There was no mercy there. Only calculation. Her older sister had already tried. The prince had almost believed her, until the birds sang. Then he saw the blood filling the slipper. So the younger girl picked up the knife. This is not a missing scene from a horror film. This is Cinderella. This is the version the brothers Grimm recorded in 1812. It came from German grandmothers who whispered it after the children went to sleep. It is the version that remembers what the world later tried to forget. Welcome to the Pandora's Project. Tonight, we unseal the record behind Cinderella. Not the cartoon, not the romance. The version preserved in first editions, parish ledgers, and demographic records from 1550 to 1900. The version that shows what happened when a parent died, when new wives arrived with their own children, when homes collapsed under jealousy and scarcity. If you want the truth behind the tales we softened for children, subscribe to the Pandora's Project. The archive stays open for those willing to face what was buried. Hit like and stay to the end. The story you know begins with magic and ends with a kiss. The story the archive preserves begins with death, and it ends with blood on the church steps. Part 1. The Familiar Lie. The version most people know today comes from France in 1697. Charles Perrault published it in a collection of tales written for the court of King Louis XIV. In that version, a wealthy man loses his wife and remarries. His new bride brings 2 daughters from her first marriage. All 3 women are vain, cruel, and proud. The merchant has a daughter from his deceased wife. She is a gentle girl with unmatched beauty. The moment the wedding ends, the stepmother's true nature appears. She cannot tolerate the stepdaughter's goodness. It makes her own daughters look worse by comparison. She forces the girl to do every degrading task in the household. She scrubs floors. She scours dishes. She cleans the stepsister's chambers. Her fingers crack from lye and cold water. Ash grinds into her lungs each time she coughs. At night, while her stepsisters sleep on fine beds, the girl curls by the hearth to stay warm. They mock her. Cinderella, Cinder Girl, Ash Girl. Even in rags and covered in soot, she remains more beautiful than her stepsisters in their finest gowns. The prince announces a grand ball. Every maiden in the kingdom receives an invitation. The stepsisters prepare with excitement. They demand that Cinderella help them dress, arrange their hair, and choose their jewels. When she asks if she may attend, they laugh. A servant girl at the royal ball? Impossible. After they leave, Cinderella weeps beside the cold hearth. Her fairy godmother appears. A wand replaces a grave. A pumpkin replaces a tombstone. A coach replaces a coffin in a story that was never meant to be that clean. With a wave of her wand, she turns the pumpkin into a golden coach. She turns mice into horses. She turns a rat into a coachman. She turns lizards into footmen. She transforms Cinderella's rags into a gown of silver and gold. On Cinderella's feet, she places the finest glass slippers ever made. But the magic expires at midnight. Everything returns to its original form when the clock strikes 12. At the ball, the prince dances only with her. She loses track of time. When midnight chimes, she flees in panic. She leaves one glass slipper on the palace steps. The prince searches the entire kingdom for the maiden whose foot fits the delicate shoe. When he reaches Cinderella's home, the stepsisters struggle to force their large feet into the slipper. Cinderella steps forward. The shoe fits perfectly. She produces its match from her pocket. The prince marries her. She forgives her stepsisters. She even arranges noble marriages for them. They all live happily ever after. If this were the whole story, Cinderella would be a harmless bedtime tale. It is not. This is the lie. Perrault added the pumpkin, the fairy godmother, the glass slippers, the midnight deadline, and the forgiveness. He wrote for a court that wanted polished tales, gentle morals, and clean endings. But the story is older than France, older than forgiveness. And what it remembers is far darker than a lost shoe. Once you see what the older versions remember, the glass slipper will never look innocent again. Part 2. Ancient Proof. The earliest written record comes from the 1st century. A Greek geographer named Strabo documented a legend that was already ancient when he recorded it. He wrote of a Greek courtesan named Rhodopis who lived in the Egyptian city of Naucratis. Her name means rosy-cheeked. His Geographica describes what happened as she bathed by the river. An eagle descended from the sky. It snatched one of her sandals from her maid and carried it across the desert to Memphis. The thin leather was stained with dust and sweat. It held the imprint of her toes. The pharaoh sat in the open air, administering justice to his people. The eagle circled his head 3 times, then dropped the sandal into his lap with a wet slap. It was still warm from her skin. The pharaoh studied the delicate shoe. Its shape and the strange way it arrived stirred something in him. He sent men across Egypt to find the woman who wore it. When they found Rhodopis, they brought her to Memphis. She became the pharaoh's wife. 2,000 years before Perrault imagined glass slippers and pumpkin coaches, the pattern already existed. A woman of low status, a single shoe, a powerful man searching for her, a marriage that lifted her above everyone who dismissed her. The pattern appears again in China, 860 years after the birth of Christ. A scholar named Duan Chengxi recorded a tale in his work, Miscellaneous Morsels from Yuyang. It is the story of Ye Xian. Her mother died when she was young. Her father took a second wife. This stepmother brought her own daughter into the household. When the father died, the stepmother's cruelty began. Ye Xian befriended a fish that lived in the pond behind the house. She did not know the fish was her mother's spirit, reborn to watch over her. Each day she saved scraps of food for it. The fish surfaced only when Ye Xian approached. It trusted only her. The stepmother discovered this bond. She dressed in Ye Xian's clothes and went to the pond with food hidden in her sleeves. She called to the fish. When it surfaced, she killed it with a hidden knife. The water flashed red for a moment, then closed again like nothing had happened. That night, she cooked its flesh and served it to her own daughter. The broth was rich and oily. Each swallow slid down her daughter's throat like a secret. The stepmother buried the bones beneath a dung heap. When Ye Xian learned the truth, she wept by the pond until her tears soaked the earth. A man appeared before her, descending from the sky in rough clothing. He told her, "Retrieve the bones and hide them in your room. Whatever you wish for, the bones will provide." She dug through the dung heap and found them. She cleaned them with care and placed them beneath her bed. When the local festival arrived, the stepmother forbade her from attending. She forced Ye Xian to guard the fruit trees instead. But Ye Xian went to the bones and asked for festival clothes. They gave her a gown of kingfisher feathers and shoes of pure gold, light as air. She went to the festival. Her stepsister recognized her. Ye Xian fled in panic. She lost one golden shoe. The king of a nearby island obtained the shoe. Its size astonished him. No woman in his kingdom had feet small enough to wear it. He searched every house. When he found Ye Xian and saw the shoe fit perfectly, He took her as his wife. The stepmother and her daughter tried to follow, hoping to share her rise in status. Rocks fell from the sky and killed them both. For the rest of her life, every time Ye Xian tasted fish, she remembered the first time she ate her mother. From Egypt to China, across thousands of years, the same pattern repeats. A dead mother, a cruel stepmother, magical help from beyond the grave, a shoe, a marriage, and in the oldest versions, consequences. Justice that feels like revenge. The pattern is too consistent to be chance. Fairy tales do not invent cruelty. They archive it. Part 3. The German Truth. In 1812, Jakob and Wilhelm Grimm published the first edition of their collection. They gathered tales from German grandmothers who told them in quiet voices after the children were supposed to sleep. The story they recorded was not Perrault's gentle romance. It was called Aschenputtel, Ash Fool, and it began with death. A wealthy man's wife falls ill. As she lies dying, she calls her only daughter to the bedside. The girl is 14. Her breath rattles like stones shaken in a box. Each word drains her strength. She speaks her final message. Remain pious and good, and God will protect you. I will look down from heaven and be with you. Plant a hazel branch on my grave. Water it with your tears. When you need me, go to that tree. I will help you. The mother dies. The girl plants the hazel branch and waters it with grief. Over the months, it grows into a tree. The bark stays wet from her tears. White birds leave tiny claw marks in the wood. The marks remain like testimony. White birds nest in its branches. The father remarries within the year. His new wife brings 2 daughters from her first marriage. They have beautiful faces and fair skin, but their hearts are cruel. The stepmother looks at the girl and sees a problem. A younger, prettier stepdaughter who will compete with her own daughters for marriage. A girl with a claim on the father's wealth that will reduce what her daughters inherit. The stepsisters take the girl's fine clothes and jewels. They dress her in rags and banish her to the kitchen. They force her to work from dawn until after dark. She fetches water. She lights fires. She cooks. She scrubs floors. She washes dishes. She answers every demand. At night, she sleeps in the ashes by the hearth because they have taken her bed. The ashes cling to her face, her clothes, and her hair. They give her a new name. Aschenputtel, the Ash Fool. The king announces a 3-day festival so the prince can choose a bride. Every maiden in the kingdom receives an invitation. The stepsisters prepare with excitement. When Aschenputtel asks if she may attend, the stepmother laughs. You have no proper clothes. You have no shoes. You would shame us. But if you can pick 2 dishes of lentils from the ashes in 1 hour, you may come. She dumps the lentils into the fireplace ashes and leaves with her daughters. The lentils vanish into the gray like teeth scattered in a grave. Aschenputtel goes to the kitchen door and calls to the birds. 2 white doves fly through the window. Then more birds follow, dozens of them. They pick every lentil from the ashes in less than an hour. When the stepmother returns and sees the task completed, she dumps 4 dishes of lentils into the ashes. The birds return. They finish even faster. It does not matter. The stepmother takes her daughters and leaves. Aschenputtel goes to her mother's grave and stands beneath the hazel tree. She speaks to the branches. The white birds throw down a dress of gold and silver and slippers to match. She goes to the festival. The prince dances only with her. When evening comes and she asks to leave, he tries to follow. She runs to the estate and hides in the pigeon house. The prince tells her father. The father chops down the pigeon house with an axe, but she has already escaped through the back. She returns the fine clothes to the tree and lies sleeping in the kitchen ashes when her father comes home. The next night, the birds give her a more beautiful dress. The prince dances with her again. When she flees, she climbs a pear tree in the garden. The father chops it down. She has already vanished. On the third night, the dress is the finest yet. The slippers are pure gold. The prince orders the palace stairs coated with pitch to trap her. When midnight comes and she runs, one golden slipper sticks in the pitch. The prince lifts it carefully. He declares, "I will marry the maiden whose foot fits this shoe." The next morning, he brings the slipper to the house. The elder stepsister tries to force her foot inside. Her toes are too large. The mother hands her a knife. Cut them off. When you are queen, you will not need to walk. The girl cuts off her toes. They hit the floor with a soft, awful sound. The blood soaks into the slipper, but her foot fits. The prince lifts her onto his horse. As they ride past the hazel tree, the white birds call out, "Look at the shoe." Blood drips from it. She is not the bride. The prince returns. The younger stepsister tries. Her heel is too large. The mother gives her the knife. "Cut off your heel. When you are queen, you will not need to walk." The girl slices off her heel. She pushes her bleeding foot into the golden slipper. Each step makes a quiet squelch. It is the sound of a lie she must keep walking on. The prince takes her on his horse. The birds call again. Blood drips. She is not the bride. The father mentions his dead wife's daughter, filthy and covered in ashes, but the prince demands she try. Aschenputtel washes her face and hands. She slides her foot into the slipper. It fits as if made for her alone. The prince recognizes her as the maiden from the festival. He lifts her onto his horse. As they pass the hazel tree, the birds land on her shoulders, one on the left and one on the right. They ride to the church for the wedding. The stepsisters walk behind as bridesmaids, hoping to gain favor with the future queen. As Aschenputtel walks down the aisle, the birds dive from the rafters. There is no warning. No flutter of wings. No chance to raise a hand. They strike both stepsisters' eyes. The left eye from one, the right eye from the other. When the ceremony ends and the wedding party leaves the church, the birds strike again. They take the remaining eyes. Both stepsisters are blinded. They walk out of the church the same way they lived in that house, reaching for a future that is no longer there. They spend the rest of their lives in darkness. They stumble through the world they tried to steal from someone else. This is what the Grimm brothers collected from the voices of the old. No fairy godmother. No forgiveness. No happy ending for those who cause suffering. Only a mother's promise kept from beyond death. Birds that remember everything, and justice delivered with sharp beaks and patience. Part 4. The historical record. The Grimm brothers collected this version in 1812. But the world behind it, the world of stepfamilies, dead parents, and desperate homes, reaches back centuries. Parish registers across Europe recorded every birth, every death, every marriage in heavy leather ledgers. The ink has faded. The handwriting has thinned. But the lives trapped in those pages still speak. A priest in Bohemia dips his quill in 1708. Candle smoke drifts above the book. He writes the same lines, page after page. Mother deceased. Child to father's care. Mother deceased. Father remarried within 3 months. Near Pilsen, 13 of every 100 children lose a parent before age 5. The quill scratches. The page fills. The pattern repeats like a whispered confession. On the island of São Jorge, in the Azores, daughters outnumber marriageable men so severely that half the women's hopes die before they ever speak to a suitor. 78 men for every 100 women. By 1900, the number drops to 39. Widows rarely remarry. Widowers almost always do. Across Catholic Spain, Lutheran Germany, and Orthodox Romania, widowers remarry 3 times as often as widows. They do it quickly. They do it out of fear. They choose young women who have never married before, because they must build a new household in a matter of weeks. Porto, 1703. Ana Maria de Cruz is 18 when she marries. Her husband is 55. A widower. She becomes stepmother to his 3 sons. The eldest is 19, older than her. The second is 17. The youngest is 15. 3 young men stare at the girl taking their dead mother's place. This is not unusual. This is survival. When a mother dies with infants still nursing, the father's choices shrink to 2. Remarry almost at once, or watch the baby die. Westphalia, 1692. A woman dies in childbirth. She leaves a newborn daughter, a 2-year-old son, and a 4-year-old daughter. 4 weeks later, the widower marries a woman from the next village. In the margin, the priest writes, "Infant survival dependent upon new mother's milk." The grave dirt on the doorstep is still fresh when the new wife crosses the threshold. The newborn is still screaming. Without her, the household collapses. Men cannot farm while cooking, cleaning, tending children, and feeding infants. Women cannot earn enough alone to keep a roof above them. 1 in 3 children reach 15 without a mother or father. By their mid-20s, 1 in 2 become half orphans. For them, stories about dead parents are not fantasy. They are memory. Children who gain stepmothers survive almost as well as children with both biological parents, but only if the stepmother arrives before the child is 3. Later than that, she cannot save them. Age matters. Timing matters. Survival is measured in weeks. When widowers marry widows, both bring children from first marriages. 2 sets of children are pushed beneath one roof. The Cinderella scenario appears in ink. Younger half-siblings in these crowded houses suffer most. Too many mouths. Too much work. Too little of everything. When you hear wicked stepmother, do not imagine a villain in a story. Imagine a woman barely 20, placed in charge of 5 hungry children and a failing farm. Hunger dulls sympathy. Scarcity sharpens cruelty. The records show the fractures. Estate inventories list which stepchild receives which object. Court documents describe stepmothers accused of favoring their own blood. Wills demand equal portions for stepchildren and biological children, written as commands, as if equality cannot be trusted to happen on its own. The fairy tale preserves what the registers confirm. Stepmothers were common. They arrived young. They stepped into homes already cracked. Resources grew thin. Inheritance split and split again. By the time the Grimm brothers opened their notebooks, the women telling them stories were not inventing monsters. They were remembering faces they had known. Part 5. The Korean Nightmare. In Korea, 17 versions of the Cinderella tale survive. Among them is the story of Kongjui and Pajui. No version in the world matches it. Not for its violence. Not for its grief. What sets the Korean telling apart is simple. The story does not end when the nobleman finds his bride. It keeps going, and it walks straight into a nightmare. Kongjui loses her mother when she is young. Her father remarries a widow who brings her own daughter, Pajui. When the father dies, the mask drops. The stepmother's cruelty pours into the house like cold water. She starves Kongjui. She beats her. She works her until her body shakes. But Kongjui is not alone. A black ox appears in the fields. It stands beside her while she labors. It lowers its head in quiet sympathy. It is not a beast. It is her father's spirit, returned in flesh to protect his child. The stepmother discovers their bond. Something bitter sharpens inside her. She calls a butcher. The ox dies screaming while Kongjui is away. When she returns to the field, the earth is red. Flies rise in clouds from the soil. The smell hits her before the truth does. Then she collapses. That night, the stepmother ladles soup into bowls. Kongjui, faint from hunger, eats in silence. When she finishes, the stepmother laughs. Did you enjoy eating your only friend? That was the flesh of the black ox. You have eaten your father. The taste in Kongjui's throat curdles. She cannot swallow. She cannot bring him back. She buries the ox bones beneath a tree and weeps until her breath shudders. Then the bones begin to glow. Soft blue light rises through the dirt. Her father's spirit is free from its prison. He can protect her now from beyond death. A nobleman announces a feast for unmarried women. The stepmother forbids Kongjui to attend. She pours rice into dirt and orders Kongjui to separate every grain before she can leave. Birds gather around her feet, summoned by her father's spirit. They clean the rice in minutes. A frog seals her broken water jug. Beneath the tree, beside the glowing bones, a dress appears. Tiny golden shoes wait beside it. Kongjui goes to the feast. The nobleman falls in love the moment he sees her. When she flees at midnight, she loses one golden shoe. The nobleman swears he will marry the woman whose foot fits the shoe. When his servants arrive at the stepmother's house, Pachui forces her foot toward the slipper. Her toes are too thick. The stepmother grabs a knife. If it worked for the German girls, it will work here. She hacks off Pachui's toes. One strike, then another, and another. Pachui screams. Her mother shoves the bleeding foot into the shoe and wraps it in cloth to hide the blood. The nobleman takes Pachui to his estate. A bird sings above him. The shoe is red, not silk, not gold. Blood. He removes the bandages and sees the butchered foot. He sends her home in disgust. He finds Kongjui. The shoe fits her perfectly. They marry, but the nightmare has not begun to end. Pachui and her mother burn with hatred. One evening, when the nobleman is away, they come to the estate. They lure Kongjui to a pond and drown her. The water closes over her like a sealed jar. And soon, the jar closes the same way. They hide her body in a giant clay jar and tell the nobleman, Kongjui died of sudden illness. Then they present Pachui as the replacement daughter. The nobleman, broken by grief, lets her into his home. But Kongjui's spirit refuses to rest. From the jar, where her body lies hidden, a lotus flower grows. Its beauty is unnatural. Pachui tears it out and burns it to ash. From the ashes, a bird rises with mother-of-pearl feathers. It flies to the nobleman's house and sings songs filled with sorrow. Pachui catches it and kills it. From its feathers, a comb grows. A servant finds it and brings it to the nobleman. Every time they destroy her, she returns, smaller, more delicate, more dangerous. That night, the comb glows with ghostly light. The nobleman's breath fogs in the room. The windows are shut. The doors are barred. He wakes to find Pachui beside him. Her eyes are empty. Her lips are still. But a voice speaks, his wife's voice. My dearest, it is Kongjui. I am here in the servant. I am everywhere. I am the comb. I am the flower. I am the bird. I was dead, but now I live in the living. Kongjui has turned her suffering into weapons. Her spirit slips inside Pachui's body. She steals her voice. She steals her breath. She bends her bones like a puppet. Pachui is alive inside the prison of her own skin. She cannot scream. She cannot flee. Her life drains away as Kongjui grows stronger. On a moonlit night, Kongjui uses the last of Pajui's life to step into the world. Pajui's body falls lifeless. From it rises Kongjui, reborn in flesh and blood. The stepmother is executed for murder. Pajui is buried beside her mother, united in malice even in death. Kongjui and the nobleman lived together for many years. But those who knew her say the shadow of what she suffered never left. Until her final breath, she keeps the comb close. A reminder that love, once stained by death, never dies, and neither does revenge. In Europe, the doves take eyes. In Korea, the dead wife takes a body. Different continents. Same promise. When the living refuse justice, the dead will learn to walk. Final part. The breaking seals. The sanitized version teaches patience, kindness, forgiveness. Wait for magic. Wait for rescue. The original versions teach something else. Survive. Remember, when the world refuses justice, the dead will deliver it. Perrault removed the mother's grave, the hazel tree, the birds, the blood. He added the fairy godmother, the pumpkin, the glass slippers, the forgiveness. He transformed a story about survival in brutal stepfamilies into a romance. But the older versions remember what Europe lived through. 1 in 3 children lost a parent. Widowers remarried within weeks. Stepmothers arrived young into fractured households. And sometimes, the ashes by the hearth were not a metaphor. Sometimes there really was a knife on the table and a mother saying, "You will never need to walk." The shoe is not about finding love. The shoe is about proving identity when everyone denies you exist. The magic is a dead mother's promise kept from beyond the grave. The blood on the church steps is the truth we tried to bury under glass slippers and cartoon mice. If this helped you see what Cinderella was before it became a princess movie, support this work with a like. Subscribe to the Pandora's Project so you are here when the next forbidden tale opens. Comment with which sanitized story you want unsealed next. The glass slipper shattered long ago. What remains is golden, and it fits only those willing to see the blood. See you in the next tomb.